Welcome back to Have You Heard, the social media podcast brought to you by The Social Shepherd. Today, I'm joined by Zoe.
Hello.
And I'm Jack. We're both the co-founders here at The Social Shepherd, and we really wanted to talk to you guys today specifically around opportunities for brands on social and how they can shift their mindset, shift the way that they're approaching social over the next 12 months, but ultimately what they should be doing today and really delivering that sort of social first strategy.
We've ummed and added what this podcast is actually going to be titled, but really it's what would we tell people to be looking at if they're a brand, if they're working on a brand that's active in social in 2024.
And these are our 3 top tips. There's obviously many more that goes into a social strategy than this, but I think it's stuff that brands should be on the lookout for and how they should be adapting their stuff today. So go away, Zoe.
Okay, I've got some notes.
Let's get it underway.
So I think one of the key things that we need to talk about is how we're measuring the success of social and attribution in general. So obviously Universal Analytics was sunsetted this year. We've now moved into GA4, which has a data-driven attribution model. And it's really showing the power that paid social has and you know, channels that may not have been as easy to attribute towards because we were looking at things on a first click basis with Universal Analytics.
Last click, please. Do you want to repeat that?
Oh, sorry, last click basis. Yeah. I wish it was first click.
That's the power of paid social is often the first click.
Exactly.
As a part of someone's user journey.
Well, exactly. You're disrupting people. You're not going after necessarily in-market people, particularly with that upper funnel activity. So I think that's just really helping us understand the value of other channels, not just paid social, that are more of that upper funnel activity. So I think firstly, if you're not utilizing that to its full potential, you need to be. But one other thing that I've been finding that more and more clients are speaking to us about and things that we're modeling more and more is it's been really difficult over the last few years to measure the value of organic social. And everyone knows that organic social has a value. You know, that's how you increase your share of voice organically. It's how you really engage with your community. It's a brand building exercise ultimately. But a lot of marketers have this kind of siloed view of things and they see how great paid social is and they can forecast easier with paid social because, you know, an auction is easier to
show an input and show an output.
Well, basically. Input and output as opposed to an algorithm because they go up and down all the time. They change all the time. But what we have been looking to try and have a mildly comparable sort of view of them is looking at earned media value. Mm-hmm. So looking at the impressions or the views, if you don't have impression data on that platform, and applying that to the average CPM you're seeing on your brand marketing activity and looking at the value of a piece of content and how much owned the owned value that's brought to you basically. Yeah. I'm describing this awfully. I'm getting my words tangled, but it basically means that you can set a target on your piece of content and say, we want every single piece of content to bring us to have a £100 earned media value or whatever it is. Yeah. So EMV is a really good way to start looking at that. And I think we will see more marketers move towards that model. It is worth caveating though that you can't, it's a really good metric, but you can't compare them like for like, because you could definitely argue, as we were talking about this beforehand, that organic views are actually more valuable than paid impressions, basically.
It's debatable. And I'm sure if there's someone from the paid team in here as well, they might take the other side. It is an interesting topic but I think...
Well, and they do 2 very different things. And I think that's why you've got to compare your organic stuff to your brand marketing CPMs as opposed to your performance marketing CPMs. And I don't mean brand marketing CPMs where you've literally just optimized something towards reach because you're just going to get a crazy low CPM on that. You know, we need to be tactical about what we're measuring it towards, and really it should be those engagement metrics because they're the most like for like ones that we should look at. But they do two different things. And so that's why brand and engagement, look at the CPMs that you're hitting on those campaigns, apply that to your organic content, and you should be able to understand more of the value. And really it's for clients that they have a social team and they've got to report into like a wider digital team or maybe up to like a CEO. And it helps contextualize the activity that you're doing a little bit more. So we're seeing clients do it. We're working with a lot of clients on it. And I think we will see people talk about that more in relation to organic social. So that's just something to bear in mind. It's kind of along the lines of attribution, but how you attribute internally as opposed to actually physically attributing purchases towards something.
But that's been a tricky part for anyone in organic social, to prove their worth.
Every single pitch, it's like, how much revenue are you going to drive from this? And I'm like, well, unless we're bringing in social commerce, which is one of our other sort of points, it is really, really difficult. I think GA4 as well, though, because we are looking at that data-driven attribution, is going to make it easier to attribute on organic. But I think the thing that we've got to be mindful of is that a lot of the work that is done, the brand building, the relationship building is done in platform. So it actually doesn't even go through, it doesn't even pass through GA4 to be able to look at that. So people have to bear that in mind.
Which is sometimes where you can see what we always talk about is like brand search uplifts. So people
so it's
more likely searching, your brand name plus product or brand name, and then coming through to your homepage through search as well. So that's a big thing. But
but I think search is actually another point to talk about, is that we've heard it so many times and it's getting a little bit boring consistently hearing like social is a search tool now. Like it's always been a search tool, but with the likes of TikTok and the way that they're really pummeling through that. And every time you search something on Google, you're getting TikTok results come up in like the third or fourth line of that. Google will start to push YouTube shorts on that, but if you're not optimizing your content and looking at social content with a traditional content marketing eyeball, like, is your headline like clickbait worthy? It doesn't have to be cringy clickbait. It just needs to be something that people actually care about. And that's something we're really pushing onto our clients at the minute. If it's not a point of interest or something that's going to grab attention, then it is just not worth posting, because you're not going to get cut through. It's not going to work with the algorithm. The reach is going to be so low on it, and you're not going to be discoverable when people are looking for that type of content. So I think a good thing to do this year if you're working in social is, if you don't know about SEO, learn about SEO. There are loads of free courses out there. Understand the basic principles of it and start to bring that into your social media strategy. And it doesn't only aid your organic, it can aid your paid media messaging as well. More so from a creative messaging perspective on paid, but it's worth knowing about and it's worth learning about for sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned in amongst that social commerce, and obviously TikTok Shop has changed.
I love TikTok Shop.
Okay, obviously I know that you purchase stuff, and a number of people purchase stuff through TikTok Shop in the office. Obviously we've seen brands come out of nowhere, not even have their own website, only sell on TikTok Shop, and do crazy numbers, and then be picked up by retail stores, and then they're in, they're getting full distribution in Boots or anything like that. What else have you seen from TikTok Shop, and what will you be sort of recommending to brands about?
So I think a lot of like brands are quite scared of TikTok Shop, and I think I don't want this to come across disrespectful to anyone that started a business on TikTok Shop, because it's really impressive what they've done. But I think those brands that are more well established, when they see the TikTok lives happening, or it's a little bit QVC and stuff like that, and they see the types of products, and it tends to be a lot of dupes that get sold on TikTok Shop. So I think some brands are quite scared, but I think there is a massive opportunity for them on there. And I think now that, TikTok have better fulfillment options now that they can offer. And so what I always suggest to clients is, like, if you're not sure about it, let's do a test. Let's send 1,000 or however many products you want to off a specific product, or maybe a handful of product variations, and do a test on the platform, see what the uplift is like with your audience before you properly commit to implementing those fulfillment features into either, how you're fulfilling at the minute or utilizing a TikTok partner for that.
You often see bundles do quite well on TikTok Shop as well.
Exactly. But I think the barrier to entry there is if you're a retailer and you've been going on the high street and you've got a really good e-com setup that you've worked on perfecting for years, the thought of kind of almost going backwards into TikTok Shop, and like, it doesn't seem like a massive thing to just put a bundle together, but it is for those businesses because they've got the way that their products are categorized. So that's why I think that before brands really delve in and they say, okay, we're going to really invest in a social commerce strategy. This is how we're going to do it. We know that this may actually take traffic away from our site, but we're going to measure the overall revenue that's coming in across the entire business.
The only downside is that you don't own, I don't like to use that word, but own your customer. You don't get the email. So when you acquire that user, it's hard to then remarket to them but hopefully
you can remarket to them in platform, but it's outside of that's making it really difficult.
No email marketing is possible on the back end.
I genuinely believe that the best thing to do with TikTok Shop is to test it with some lower price items, run a limited time offer or whatever it is, and see how it does for your brand. I think we will see more people taking it up over the next 12 months.
And then use a mix of creators and paid and some of your own organic content to gain traction. But a lot of obviously creators are, people are gifting to hundreds of creators on an affiliate program.
Yeah.
And everyone, that is driving quite a bit for a number of these TikTok shops. But I guess talking about creators, one of the final points I wanted to discuss with you is sort of methods of production.
Yeah.
I think we see still to this day lots of brands or lots of other social agencies coming in with a super polished video content, still putting out there, which looks great, and it's more commercial.
Sometimes it looks great.
Yeah.
If it's done well,
yeah,
it looks great. If it's done like they're trying to put a TV ad on an Instagram reel, it can actually just reflect really badly on them. Been resized poorly, or sometimes not even resized, and so I think you kind of just got to tread carefully on those things.
So I think there's been a transition for even videographers to go, God, I've got to shoot in vertical rather than in landscape. Got to sort of drop what they've almost previously.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but I think I was speaking to our production team the other week, and I set them a task, and we've started doing more YouTube creative within the agency, which is really exciting. But where the team have been so used to shooting portrait, and they all came here and were like, oh my goodness, like we're going to have to move from landscape to portrait. And then they have to put lines on their cameras to figure out how to do it. And then we ask them to go back a year later and they're like, oh, there's a lot of stuff going on my screen.
Yeah, I guess you get used to what you've just done for over the years. But I think in terms of methods of production, obviously ourselves and what we're seeing perform well on social is that really, social native content, UGC, mobile shot content. We still obviously produce stuff on DSLR as well, depending on the narrative. I
think there's kind of a twofold to this, and it's the two different types of content serve very different purposes, because we've actually seen towards the tail end of this year, higher production content actually do really well. You've got the Rimmel ads where they've used a lot of AR visuals.
Sure.
We've done quite a lot of that for clients as well. And that's a new type of content that's coming onto social that is polished, but it's people are getting more used to almost that virtual reality style content.
Yeah,
and I do feel like that's going to become bigger over the next year. And that's actually really nice in a way that creatives can focus in that way on social.
More in lines of innovation, I guess.
Yeah, innovation. And I think we are seeing people come back to having I think as consumers, we almost lost a bit of respect for like high production and technical pieces of content. And I think now that, you know, it is a little bit oversaturated with that UGC feel that people are kind of craving innovation in that area, but they do very different things. And so, you know, what we've tried to do as an agency is look at production from a complete 360 view. So our content team will ideate a piece of content and they will go, who is the best person to create this? Is it our content team going to a store and filming this on a mobile, a slightly elevated UGC piece of content? Is it better treated like a high production piece of content with a full kit and crew filming on DSLRs? Or does it actually make more sense for us to utilize a content creator that we trust to make this look like a piece of UGC content? And all of those work on social in different areas. The UGC stuff absolutely smashes it from a performance perspective. Like we know that that delivers really, really well. The higher production stuff does really well from a brand perspective. And actually, surprisingly, is also now performing on an organic perspective, provided that you get it right. So there's so many different ways of looking at producing content. And I think people just need to get more used to being flexible with that and not letting your means of producing content or what you currently have access to lead that. You should be coming up with the idea first and then deciding how that's going to be produced. And I think in some ways, creatives almost have to like drop their, this sounds so bad, but like drop their egos a little bit in certain ways, because I guess it is frustrating now that you can just send a product off to a UGC content creator and they'll send something back, whereas you could spend 2 days filming this beautiful piece of content. That's going to look significantly better. Trust me, it's going to be more beautifully shot. The other one's going to perform better. And that can be a hard pill to swallow. And so I think it's just about like really understanding what your consumer wants to see and producing for that, as opposed to producing for what you think you want to do.
Yeah, love that. I'm having lots of conversations about this at the moment, but I think that's probably one of the most powerful things that we could share, I guess, in terms of how we're approaching it, what we're seeing work and how brands can then take that forward with them.
I am really happy though that like we're seeing that AR style content, like the higher production stuff come back though, because I do genuinely feel like creative in social kind of got lost over the last couple of years, and it's still creative. Like, don't get me wrong, coming up with those UGC narratives is hard. It's not easy and it's harder than it looks, but I think it's really nice though that we're getting back into a more balanced place. It just means everyone has to level up a little bit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks very much for sharing that, Zoe. It's been great speaking with you about these things, and I'm sure we're going to do some more videos coming up, especially on predictions, probably for 2024, and where we're seeing obviously what we've covered today is what we're advising today.
Let's get Q4 over with, and then we can do some predictions.
It's a busy old time. Here at So Shepherds. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and I can see you guys very, very soon, and make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening.